Okay, welcome back. As you can see in front of you, we've got something very pleasant to talk about. The Sportmatch GC2.
We wanted to cover one of these for a while.
We've been trying to find one, haven't we?
Yeah.
And
we keep getting promised them, but nothing's turned
well,
up.
yet again, Ian Johns has come up trumps because Ian said, like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Oh, I want mine a GC2," and he's like, "I've got one of those, which is great."
Yeah, well, this is a left-handed one.
Unusually left-handed.
Yeah,
as well,
I was going to say very rare. Number 23.
Number
A
23.
Very early Mark 1.
That's right, it is, yeah. Should we tell people how they can... Actually, let's talk about the rifle for a bit first, because there are subtle differences between the Mark 1, the Mark 2 and the Mark 3. And if you're going to want to buy one...
Good luck.
To be honest with you, all the ones that we see in the shop these days, all right, they're expensive to buy second hand, but they always work really well, and the people who've owned them have always had them serviced regularly, religiously, even when it's cost like, I think it's 250 quid for a service now, 250, 300 quid. In fact, Dave Brayford does them, doesn't he?
Yeah.
SCR
They were
Customs.
about £800 when they were new. This is in a day when a Vire Arc would cost you about 80 quid. So I don't think they were ever those. I think they were around about £800 then. And so that's a serious amount of dosh, isn't it?
Yeah. So,
handmade.
Yeah. And I suppose some would say, in fact, a lot of people who owned a GC2 would say worth every penny. So I mean, the story behind it is John Ford. He started the business in, I think it was 1972. Yeah, 1972.
Yeah.
And the company was still known as JJ Ford's up until 1992, which I think then they changed it to Sportsmatch.
Yeah.
So basically, when these were produced, the company wasn't called Sportsmatch; it was called JJ Ford's. But anyway, John produced the GC2, which was very unusual in its day, because it was the regulator, wasn't it?
It was a conversation, as I understand it, between John Ford and a guy called Gerald Cardew. Gerald Cardew did a GC1 prototype, and then he had a GC2 rifle, which John put into production. This, as far as I get it. It uses a different type of regulator. It uses a complete dump system. So when you charge it, you're filling a second regulator. And when you pull the trigger, the whole chamber empties and the piston moves. It's quite unusual to fire it. There's a movement that you feel in firing the gun. I don't know of any other gun that works or has worked in this way.
I mean, even the method of operation was very different, to be honest with you. In actual fact, it's funny because the way that the GC2 worked seemed to add to its cachet, didn't it? It added to that
following.
mysterious...
I remember there was a club down called Markyate down in sort of middle not Hampshire, Hertfordshire, and they all had them, and they had a big following. And Terry Doe was a big follower. They had one of these.
Yep.
But they just were fantastic rifles. The build quality was right up there. Aluminium air cylinder, highly unusual. Different weight, very long, not particularly efficient. Was it 40, 50 shots per charge?
I think you got about 50 shots, which really, I guess guys these days are going to go like, where the hell was all the air going?
Exactly. Well, it was going straight out the transfer port, because you dumped the whole of the secondary chamber when you fired the rifle, so they weren't particularly efficient. They did do some long cylinder versions for export. I've seen those. They've got to be even rarer. Some people in Florida had those, and they paid serious dosh for those. This is an unusual rifle because it's a Mark 1 with a engraved breech block. They had a company called Alpha Anodizing, which was in Luton, and they did some what they call anodic anodizing. That's an anorak for you. It was two-color anodizing, where you silk screen on the letters, and then you partially seal it, and then you anodize on the second block. I have a suspicion this is either anodized black or it's a steel one. I think it's anodized, but the later ones had this two-pack anodizing in gloss, and they were even more beautiful. This is an early Mark 1 with quite a rare, just engraved block. And they were just fantastic rifles. They were way ahead of their time. They used to win everything.
Yeah, they did. I mean, I remember at the time wanting, I thought, I'd kill for a GC2, but I couldn't afford one. They were way too expensive, so I put up with a dare state. But when you're talking,
some similarities. When we were doing the Mark III breech block started to evolve into something looking like this, and I can remember ringing Matthew Ford, who'd taken over the company by then, saying, Matthew, our breech block looks very similar to yours. Are you upset about that? And he went, we haven't made it for a couple of years, no problem, Tony. I said, well, because of the single shot tray thing was designed to look like that. And I said, well, as you're not upset about it, who does your anodizing? So there was a definite link between the two because I was taken with this gun. I mean, it's a fantastic looking gun.
Yeah, it is.
And I actually shot alongside Stuart Lane when he took the World Championship. I was in the groups of 3 and I was in that group when he took the World Championship.
1994.
Was it 94? 94, that's
yeah,
right.
94.
94.
Yeah. In fact, well, the GC2 even won the championship 3 years after it was discontinued.
Terry Almond won it.
Terry Almond in 1998.
That's right.
Yeah, and they stopped producing these in 1995. Yeah. It feels like a gun that was almost ahead of its time by quite a margin, to be honest with you. I mean, the price was ahead of its time as well. But deservedly so.
Yeah, the Mark 1 was this. The Mark 2 had an adjuster.
Power adjuster,
you could tweak, so you didn't have to go back to the factory to have the power adjusted. And then they had a problem on the Mark 2s. They had one of them blow up. Did you know about that?
Yeah. A shoot, yeah.
Had a shoot. And I can't remember the name of the shooter now. It'll come to me in a bit. But
oh damn! Yeah, I can't remember.
But he was filling it, and it went at a shoot, and rolling thunder. It just blew up the air cylinder, and they found it was a faulty batch of tubes. They withdrew them all, tested them. They had another one fail under test, and at that point they re-cylindered them. I think that was it for Sportmatch. They decided they did a Mark III with a stainless steel tube, didn't they?
That's right. Yeah. You can tell the Mark IIIs because instead of having the 5 slots, it's easy wear.
Yeah.
Instead of having 5 slots, it was 3.
Yes.
So you can see at a glance it was a Mark III.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think basically everybody who had a GC sent theirs back for that hydrostatic testing.
Hydrostatic test, yeah.
And I didn't know that they caught anybody else's.
The story goes, and we never know for sure, that the second one failed, but in test under control conditions.
Right.
There was only the one that went at a shoot because in public gaze, so they had to do something about it, quite rightly so, and they did all the correct action.
They did, they didn't shirk from the responsibilities,
No.
that's for sure. So maybe some people have heard about the story of the gun blowing up. So what you need to do is you make sure, and I'm sure every single one of them's been done now. They've all been hydrostatically tested, and actually, I know that you used to be able to ring up Sportmatch, and in fact, actually, I did try to find. They used to have a website, didn't they, with a list of all the owners, but I can't find it anymore.
Right.
So
It would be nice to know where this one came from. I saw the blown up gun actually, and it was brought to an AMSA meeting so we could have a look at it. And it basically the extruded tube is a welding, and then it's turned and it's split on its axis, and it broken the barrel off here. The cylinder had come up, and it had a Leupold Mark IV on it with steel mounts, and it sheared the mounts in half and pushed the scope into the ground, and the scope looked like a kaleidoscope.
well, the story was he was actually holding it between his legs.
That's true.
But evidently the direction actually blew it away from him instead of
the scope went into the ground. The scope was returned to Leupold for repair, and they did it under warranty.
That's very good. Mind you, Leupold warranties was
so.
fantastic.
But it was the Mark IV, which was basically one of the best scopes you could get in those days. Steel mount, but it just shattered it, and it destroyed the gun. But it was he was given another gun by Sportmatch, a Mark III, one of the first Mark III.
Yep.
And
you would think that if somebody gave another gun, they'd be a little bit more apprehensive, but I guess if he knew that everything was going to be right.
In this industry, with compressed air, you would expect it to happen more often than it does. It doesn't. Rarely happens. It usually happens when somebody's filled the gun with oxygen. Yeah, that's the one that blows them up.
I've seen the Rapid 7
that
was
that
filled
one,
with oxygen.
But we were looking at this statistically some time ago and trying to get some feedback on how dangerous air cylinders are, and they really aren't. The bottles may be, but the air cylinders have such a small volume that even if one went, if you're 6 inches, 9 inches away, you're just going to get a ring in ears. There's no real danger of that, but of course, with it between your legs, it does actually hint that maybe there's a better way of filling it, a slightly safer way. But he was filling it.
I guess to be honest with you, because so people hear or see anything go wrong with them, I guess there's a level of complacency, an element of complacency that comes in about how you fill your rifle.
You think of the factories that fill, 10, 20, 30,000 guns a year, and they never have one.
No.
But even so, there's control areas in the factories where they're filled in. Most factories these days have a control area where the gun is filled, and usually in a case or a box, just in case something went wrong, particularly on a brand new cylinder the first time. But even then, it doesn't happen.
So it'd be interesting to show people how it operates because it's
a bit unusual.
It is very unusual, and I love the fact the way it operates because it feels like you're operating a scientific instrument.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Aren't you? I mean, it's just so handmade. So this is a southpaw one. So you press the plunger in.
Till it clicks, yeah.
And then you open the bolt, which is completely independent. It has no cocking effort at all. You load your pellet in. And while you're loading your pellet, this is settling. So it's opened the reg body, and the regulator is now filling this secondary chamber until it's at the correct pressure, which could be, I don't know, 120 bar or something like that. You put your pellet in, close it down, and then when you're ready, you close off the regulator by pressing this button, which could
separates the
two, and it's kind of a safety catch because with that in, it won't fire. Now, if the trigger's set too light, I have seen these go off when you press the button.
Right.
So if you're using one of these second-hand for the first time, just make sure that it's pointing in a safe direction when you release that button, because the judder from those working parts going forward can actually fire the trigger if the trigger's been
set too light.
Yeah. And I have seen people, when they've set the triggers too light, actually point and say, I'm firing, test fired. Oh no, I'm not, just in case it went off because it counts as a shot.
Yeah.
And then now that it's ready, now we've unloaded this one and we've checked it so we can fire this one load on camera. So you can see then you take up the first stage and it fires. Now the trigger, that's the whole thing juddered when you fired. You could feel the working parts moving back into the set position. The trigger was never fantastic on these. It was always a little bit of a disappointment. It was a bit rudimentary for the quality of the gun, but they were good enough, certainly good enough.
I was going to say, I don't think anybody can complain too much about them because the performance on the field was exemplary.
It's 1 or 2 feet per second variation across a chart.
Yeah, fantastic. Adjustable recoil pad, and there was evidently there was 2 different stocks, weren't there? There was the Wellham did a few stocks for these.
Yes, there's quite a few. John Wellham.
And Kobayashi.
Kobayashi, and Stuart Lane had a Kobayashi stock.
So what will this one be?
This is a standard Sportmatch stock.
So that is
standard.
Did Kobayashi never produce?
So this is custom stock.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. That's the standard stock of it.
That's pretty damn good for.
It's not bad, is it?
No.
Yeah.
It's
I kind of remember them being a little bit more triangular. Maybe that is an aftermarket one. I thought they were a bit sleeker.
That doesn't look. That looks custom stock to me. That
it does.
Maybe
it's an aftermarket one. They had a kind of a triangular thing going on at the front, didn't they? A little bit.
Yeah, it's lovely. I really like the standard stock, and I've seen them restocked with other stocks, and I actually prefer the standard stock to go.
Yeah. So the value, they were 800 new. They'd probably go for what, 2,000.
No, actually they don't. It's funny because the value was going up, and then I don't know what happened, but it just seemed to go really flat on them.
Right.
And the price dropped back down again, and now we're really looking around about 1,000 to 1,200.
Right. Oh, that's quite.
But we did. Do you remember the bullpup one?
Yes.
Was it the scimitar?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, we had a scimitar in recently, and it's the first time in 30 odd years I'd ever even seen the scimitar. And it was gorgeous.
Well, there were 2 versions. There was the standard custom stock version, and then there was a few with John Wellham stocks as well, with just the most beautiful finished stock on them.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when we got it in, it looked like a completely modern rifle.
Yeah.
It looked like something that, in fact, actually, it looked more modern than that last BSA that we did, the Defiance.
No, the scimitar was
But the scimitar was good, but that went for
adjustable linkage. If you're going to do a linkage with a push linkage, then that's the way to do it.
I think that went for about 2,500.
Right.
So
very
rare.
But
there was only 20.
I was going to 23 or something.
Something like 26. I can't remember exactly. Sorry, but there wasn't so many.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are like obviously. So if you do get
the Mark IIIs, a handful of Mark IIIs, mate.
There's not many. Yeah, in fact, I don't think we've had a second Mark III for years.
Yeah.
But on average, we probably get one of these. We were getting one a year, but I've noticed in the last couple of years they are getting really hard to find.
There's collectors hoovering them up now, isn't there? There's a few collectors trying to get hold of GC2s, and you don't see them very often.
No, they sell really.
And
when they do come in, they
sell
really, really quickly. So if you do get offered a GC2 at a reasonable price, and it's been tested and it's all working and everything, because like I say, the servicing costs aren't particularly cheap, but it's like buying a classic Ferrari and expecting it to go to like Quick Fit to get it done for 60 quid. You ain't going to do it. It's going to cost you £250-300 for a service. But
do the factories, do Sportmatch still service them?
I'm not so sure. The last time, we rarely get a problem with GC2s, but we did have one in that we weren't sure it was serviced.
Yeah.
But that was 2 years ago. and we sent it back to them, and they did do it, and they did a very thorough job. It was great, but I don't know since.
A question on how safe are cylinders 30 years on? You know, when you're buying all these second-hand, used guns, unknown pedigree, you know, held pressure for 30 years, aluminium cylinder.
It's you know, your average gun shop has got no facilities to test anything like that. You know,
how would you test this?
Well, you can't. You can't even go to your local diving shop and
they can't test it. It's a gun. It's integral into the gun. Very difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's a question which will. I mean, you know, I can remember we were talking earlier about the Ghirardoni, and I can remember that the gun shop that I used to go to when I was a kid, he had one. And he had pumped it and he had fired it, and it was 150 years old then. Now, they wouldn't dream of doing that now. It's a relic, and nobody would suggest that you would fill a 150-year-old air cylinder cast out in iron and the rest of it. But and these are only 30 years, you know, 20, 30, 40-year-old cylinders. Over-engineered for sure. But what point did it become something you hang on the wall? Or did you keep air in a gun like this age?
Well, that's got air in it, and all the ones that we've had have got
probably
air
got
in
the
it.
original air.
And well, actually, I know that Ian does use that.
Right.
So it is a which is great. I always think that it's nice that guns in collections do get used.
Yeah.
And it's too good to have on the wall. But I don't know the answer.
Well, an air bottle gets pressure tested every 5 years, 2.5 years if it's in water.
Well, I suppose what from a sensible point of view is if you're going to use something that's that old, you would get it rechambered, you know. But I mean, you can't get a GC2 rechambered.
No,
I doubt anybody would undertake the task.
I think you just got to take care filling it.
I mean, the nice thing is with something of this quality, it's usually, and I'm not saying this guarantees anything, but it's usually looked after very well.
Yeah.
The people who own GC2s are the type of people who have a lot of respect for the rifles.
They're at high pressure though, don't they? I seem to remember they're right up there.
Yeah,
230 bars.
220.
220.
Yeah, I think, or maybe 230.
Yeah.
So yeah, the higher pressure, but you know, I would be less worried about that being used than a gun that's been used for a couple of years by somebody who leaves their gun to rust and goes in a shed or whatever, you know, that's got moisture and stuff like that. So I don't know
the low-cost imports.
Well, even worse, I you know, the Chinese, talking about Chinese precharged rifles is a whole different kettle of fish, and maybe we'll cover it.
Yeah.
People have asked me why I don't sell certain rifles, and there are good reasons for it, in my opinion. But maybe that's one for another show.
Okay.
So yeah, I think, you know what, I personally, if it was me, I wouldn't. I know it sounds weird, but I wouldn't really be worried about a GC2.
Well, the only time it's ever going to fail is when you fill it. So if you take care, then you're pretty much on the straight and narrow.
And like I say, I'd be more worried about stuff that is much more modern, that's been treated badly because
a cartridge rifle. You know, people shooting 150-year-old, 200-year-old cartridge, 100-year-old cartridge rifles, commonly shooting them. Chamber pressures are massive, steel qualities are low. They don't think anything of that.
No.
They're worrying about little pressure in an air gun.
There you go.
Maybe we shouldn't worry so much.
Shouldn't, don't worry. It's all good. Anyway, that's sort of. I think that sums us up. I mean, like I said, you know what? If you're into your older guns and you want something that's collectible, and all right, you know, you're not going to get one of these cheap now, but they're still reasonable. They have it. You know, like sometimes you get something that just goes up through the roof.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember the day State Computer Pistol did that. You know, they were 300 quid, and all of a sudden they were £1,000, and it just went sky high.
Yeah.
These will do the same, and you know, it is getting harder to find them. So if you're a collector and you've got money burning a hole in your pocket and you want to put it into something really nice that actually is shootable and it'll hold its own against guns even to this day.
This could still win a world championship.
It could still win a world championship. It's obviously down to you to prove it. But you know, I'd love to see somebody win a world championship with something old. It'd be really cool. Yeah. Anyway, that's the GC2. I hope you've sort of enjoyed the little chat, and you know, it's great to see stuff like this. Like I said, thank you very much, Ian. Again, we want to carry on.
Yeah, Ian, get us a scimitar next time. You know, something.
Yeah, Ian hasn't got a scimitar, but he's got something. What's
the matter with him?
Well, I wanted to do the sharp stuff. what we haven't done on this show so far, really, we haven't done anything pump up, have we?
No.
And
Well, I've had a promise from Bob at City Air Weapons. He says he's got 4 of the original pump action rifles down there from the Dragon, Parker Hale Dragons.
That'd be
I
really
haven't had
good.
a chance to pick them up yet, but I'll get down.
Well, I know
there for
Ian's
next
got
year.
a Sharp Pan Target and he's got a Victory, and there's the Innova, and it's probably to be honest with you, very few people have even seen a Sharp Pan Target, so we'll get those
Okay,
on the
well,
show.
let's have a pump action special.
Pump Action Special, that sounds good. And don't forget, guys, well, actually, it's a different episode now, but we were doing the carbon fibre silencer and aiming, so if you have any ideas, obviously put that in the section for the last one. And if you've got any other good ideas for what you want to see us cover, if you've got an old rifle from your childhood that you'd love to see us. Somebody actually asked us to do, is it a Dyna G50 and a GAT?
Yeah, that's not happening.
I don't know, I sort of
A
think.
GAT and a custom stock.
GAT and a custom, I remember the GAT rifle.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that was quite something.
That's another story, isn't it? Right, thank you very much for watching as usual. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We never seem to, do you know what, we keep forgetting because we're not in it for profit, that it'd be great if you subscribed and you click that bell thing so you get to see our what's it. It's nice for us to get feedback off you as well, so if you've got any ideas for the next shows or you've got something to say about this show, feel free to say whatever you want. Okay.
Give us a thumbs up.
Thank you very much, guys.
Cheers.
And I'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I thought we could go for a curry today to save
do that.
Andrea
Thumbs up.
from cooking. Well, she's
Giving us all the cues.
Hi, I'm Steve from the British Shooting Show. Come and see us in February next year, 2019. We'll have wider aisles, more space, and a bigger and better show. Thank you.